This video is called Estimating 10-Year Returns for the S&P 500 Made Easy. This one is exciting because we have a very simple spreadsheet available on our website which will enable you to generate your own 10-year projections for the S&P 500 and gain a solid understanding of the factors affecting future returns. So there are a number of reliable bootstrap methods for estimating long-term returns, such as market cap to GDP ratio, but to really get a good handle on prospective long-term returns, you need to understand the components of future returns. Our simple spreadsheet makes understanding future returns easy. We walk through the steps to populate it. It's super easy and it's a really good learning experience. So at the end of this video, go to our website and get a copy of the spreadsheet. There are two components of future returns when you invest in an S&P 500 index fund. One is dividends and two is the proceeds when you sell the fund. Dividends are a function of either the dividend yield or the dividend payout ratio. The terminal sale price is a function of 1, the earnings, which is a function of earnings growth, and 2, the PE ratio at that time, which is a function of the valuation multiplier or PE change. So dividend payout ratio, earnings growth, and PE change are the three things we need to estimate. Our spreadsheet is very easy to use, even if you hardly use Excel. All you need to do is estimate the values for the 6 blue lines. Everything else is done for you. So this is what it looks like. It's a 10-year spreadsheet. There are 4 main sections. The first section calculates corporate earnings. The second calculates the PE ratio, the third calculates dividends, and the last section consolidates the 3 sections into a net cash flow forecast. I'll walk through it really fast and you can come back and revisit if you need to. So working backwards, our end goal is to estimate the cash flows going forward for the next 10 years, which will come from dividends plus the sale proceeds at the end of year 10. Once we have those and our current price, we can calculate the internal rate of return or projected compound annual return. To get dividends and sale proceeds, we need the 3 lines shaded in gray. So the first line, number 15, is S&P 500 earnings estimates. We use the economic data to generate an earnings growth rate for all corporations in the economy and apply that growth rate to S&P 500 earnings. We first need to estimate nominal GDP. We have the starting nominal GDP value, line 7, and going forward it is a function of real GDP growth rate, line 4, plus the change in the inflation rate, line 6. Next we estimate the change in profit margins, line 9, and with nominal GDP and profit margins we can calculate corporate earnings, line 12, and the growth rate of those corporate earnings estimates going forward on line 13. We then apply that growth rate to S&P 500 earnings on line 15. The second item is the PE multiple or earnings yield on line 23. The earnings yield is the risk-free rate, line 19, plus the equity risk premium, line 20. For the risk-free rate, we use the 10-year government bond because we are looking out at a 10-year horizon. We calculate the current equity risk premium, line 21, as the difference between the current earnings yield and the current 10-year treasury yield. So 4.14% minus 1.6%, which is 2.54%. We estimate the change in the equity risk premium, line 20, and the change in the risk-free rate, line 18, for the next 10 years, and from there can calculate the estimated earnings yield or PE ratio, line 23, which is applied to the earnings estimate on line 15 to come up with our value estimate for the S&P 500 on line 25. Lastly, dividends. We know that the current dividend yield, line 30, is 2.14%, and so we apply that to today's price to get the current dollar dividend of $44.94 for the S&P 500, which equates to a payout ratio of 51.7% of earnings on line 29. Then all we need to estimate is the change in the dividend payout ratio, line 28, and that will calculate our stream of annual dividends on line 31. Finally, we put all the cash flows together. We have the current S&P index at 2100, which is an outflow when we purchase it, and then our cash inflows on line 35 and 36 will be the dividend stream going forward plus the sale of the fund at the end of year 10. Line 38 shows our net cash flows for the 10-year period, and the internal rate of return is calculated on line 40. And so that's how this works. You can see all the factors that impact future returns in one simple sheet. When you get the spreadsheet, it's actually going to be very easy to use. There are 2 simple steps. You need to enter the current values highlighted in green here. We've entered them for you, so you won't need to worry about that. And the second step is to enter the estimates for the 6 blue lines going forward 10 years. And that's all you need to do, and it will automatically calculate the 10-year total return estimate for you. We will give you some data sources to find that data, and it is helpful to look at historical charts for some guidance in making estimates. So here are some sources to get started. The first, the government budget, has a summary table with all their economic assumptions going out 10 years, and it includes 3 of the variables we need to estimate: real GDP growth, inflation, and 10-year treasury rates. So that's a good starting point. The Federal Reserve also has a series of estimates for inflation and GDP, so check those out. Now let's briefly scan the historical charts for each of the variables. Some variables are more stable than others over time, so keep that in mind when using historical averages. This is real GDP growth. It is impacted by demographics, debt overhang, deficits, productivity growth, and historical growth rates. Here is inflation, the 10-year treasury rate, the dividend payout ratio, profit margins, and the equity risk premium. And this is a bird's eye recap looking at all 6 factors, and you can come back and look at them. So go to our website and get the spreadsheet. This is what it will look like. It includes data sources for reference. I suggest you create 3 scenarios, one optimistic, one pessimistic, and one realistic, and see what the range of outcomes looks like. Get an idea of how sensitive future returns are to the changes in each of the variables. It will really help you understand how the market functions. So in conclusion, it's a simple spreadsheet and makes projecting future returns easy. Estimating the variables into the future is not simple, but the historical data gives some guidance, and testing different scenarios gives you a valuable perspective. Thanks for watching.